What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're finally doing it. I'm doing a great one grind guide. We're going to go over everything that I know. Basically, I'm going to touch on literally everything I know going into this grind, all the questions that I get in the streams. I'm finally going to go over basically pretty much everything. I'm going to start with things like loadout, perks, and skills. Pretty much everything that you're going to need to know to not only grind the great one, but to grind really any species. Basically, this is a grinding guide, but I'm going to focus on whitetail, but you can implement and use a lot of the fundamentals that I'm going to go over in this video on pretty much any species in this game. So basically, this is a grinding guide, but we're going to focus on the great one. So basically, the first thing that we can look at here is loadout, and I'll kind of just show you guys what I use. You don't have to use exactly what I'm using. There are some alternatives, but basically I like to run with an array of weapons that cover every animal species on the map. That's just the way I do it. You don't have to do that. You could drop one or two of these weapons and carry an extra tent or carry a tripod all the time. I feel like I'm comfortable enough with what I have set up on my map that I don't need to carry a tent and a tripod all the time. But like I said, you can do it differently. This is just the way that I do it. I carry the 300 for elk and moose. I've got the M1 for whitetail. If you don't have the M1, you can use the Eckers 30-06. You could even use the 7mm if you want. I wouldn't suggest it. You want the follow-up shots. They're a super important aspect of this grind, or the follow-up shots, which is why I'm using the M1, which is why I'm not using the 303. The M1 has such a fast rate of fire that it is by far the best weapon for this grind. And I'll show you guys that later on with the follow-up shots. I'll go over how that works. But anyway, we'll come back to that. I also carry the Mosin, and that's for coyotes. I've got a 22 for the ducks, and I also carry a bow all the time. And then we've got ammo for all these guns, all the weapons. I've got my bolts. I carry the Hyperion scope only if you want to carry the Argus as well, or just the Argus. That's totally up to you. I can use the Hyperion. I'm comfortable using it in pretty much any situation. I've got the crossbow scope as well for the crossbow. I carry the deer grunt collar, the elk collar, and the moose collar. You don't have to carry the elk collar or the moose collar if you don't want to. I like to just in case. You can also use the bleak collar. You don't have to use the grunt. I've got the first aid just in case I fall and I don't want to die. I've got those on me. Apex view, binocs. Obviously, you're going to want the rangefinder binoculars if you got them. If you don't got them, well, maybe keep leveling. Maybe don't grind whitetail for the great one yet. I don't know. Just saying. Up to you, though. You do what you want. You know, you do what you want to do. Right? At the end of the day, you do what you want to do. Anyway, moving on. So that covers the loadout. Let's talk a little bit about perks. And I just want to look at a couple in particular. Rifles. Guys, I highly suggest maxing out your rifle perks. I'm not going to go over every single one. These are just really important. The only other ones I want to really go over are in the handgun perks. You want to unlock the ability to reload while running. Trust me, it's going to come in so handy, and once you've had that unlocked for a while and you've been able to do that, if you ever turn that off again, you're gonna notice it so much. You'll totally notice it once you've had it for a while. If you turn it off again, definitely get that perk. And then go into the shotgun perks. This is probably the most important perk of this grind. I'm not gonna lie. Recoil management. Less recoil when firing any weapon and able to fire a follow-up shot sooner. Each level unlocked increases the effect. Guys, you guys ask me so much about the follow-up shots, how I'm so quick with my follow-up shots. 1, practice. 2, recoil management perk. This is absolutely massive. It cuts your recoil more than in half. So get that perk, max that out, good to go. Now you may be asking yourself, what is the great one? KillClan, what is the great? What is this great one you speak of? Well, the great one, guys, is a massive, non-typical whitetail deer. It is the only great one so far in the game. It's the first one they've introduced. And the great one is the only animal in the game that goes up to a level 10 fabled. So before the great one, the highest level for any animal was the 9 legendary. The whitetail deer great one goes up to 10 fabled. It is also a great one, which goes basically is the level above diamond. So essentially what you're trying to do to spawn a great one, and essentially what the great one grind is you are grinding your whitetail in hopes that one of your whitetail will respawn as the great one. There is a very little chance that a whitetail buck will come back and respawn as the great one. Now, we don't know exactly what the odds are. We don't know if there's a better chance of the great one spawning from a diamond. I feel like that might be a thing. So basically what you're doing essentially is you're grinding your whitetail, you're getting as many diamonds as you can and hoping that your diamonds or your big bucks are going to respawn as a great one. I can't remember exactly what the odds are of a great one spawning. It's very low. So, I mean, that's why we hear of people grinding, you know, 2,000 kills or 3,000 kills or 1,500 kills or whatever to have a great one spawn. But essentially, that's what you're doing. You're grinding your whitetail. You're just basically taking out as many bucks in hopes that they're going to come back as bucks. Take down your bucks and hope that they come back as the great one. All right, so before we start getting into all the fine little details, let's take a look at my map. I'm gonna put up my map with all of my zones, and we're gonna go over, we'll look at some of my zones, but something to keep in mind, you guys, is that your map is gonna be different from anybody else's map. It's going to be completely different from mine. I get so many questions in the streams. What's the best spot to hunt for whitetail? I get asked that, you know, 20, 30 times a stream. There is no best spot. There are some hot spots, and I'm going to point out the spots where whitetail tend to usually be, but they can be anywhere along the river system, and they can pretty much be at any lake on the map. These are my zones, okay? The green line through any of these zones indicates a zone that has disappeared or that I've accidentally wiped. I'll get into how that works with hunting pressure soon. Just check everywhere for whitetail and check between 12:30 and 15:30. Whitetail deer drink from 12 to 15:30. Don't expect them to be at their zones any earlier right now than 1300, 13:30. It's a big thing for whitetail right now. They come in super late. A lot of the time, your bucks aren't going to spawn for a while. You might have only does at some of your zones. You might have a single doe for a while, and then a week later, you might go there, and all of a sudden, your bucks are back. It's weird. Nobody really knows what's going on. I'm going to touch more on that as we move along. Now, we'll take a quick look at the map, and like I said, I'm going to point out some of the spots where you're probably going to find whitetail, some of the hot spots. And those include, and I would say definitely you're going to want to check this lake in the top left of the map. I've pretty much always had a zone up here, up on the north side of this lake. I've got two zones right now at this lake above Runaki in the bottom left, southwest of the map. This has been really good for me. These zones have been a couple of my best zones. There's a really good spot on this side of the lake for a tent up on the mountain. It might be hard to find. Let's actually go there. I'll show you what I mean. So Mount Kraken. Now you can get a tent on this mountain. It's a little bit hard to find the spot, but you will be able to find a spot. This is where I've got mine. And then down below, I was actually able to get a tripod down here. This is also tricky. So tricky to get your tent there. It's doable. And then you can get a tripod down here. And then, like I said, I've got a zone right there. These are a couple of my best zones. And I've also got a zone across. And I'll just quickly give you a little glimpse at where I was able to get a tripod down. This might take a couple tries. I think the first time I put one down here, the beavers didn't like it. They knocked it over. But I think I had it in a worse spot. I think I had it like down somewhere down here or something where I could just barely get it on there. But that's the spot right there. That spot works, and it's amazing. If you have a whitetail zone here, set it up the way I've got it. Get your tent up there, get your tripod down here. Make sure your tripods are no closer than 150 meters to where you have deer. I'm pretty much exactly 150 meters here to this zone, and I'm good to go at about 225 here to this zone across. Tents, you guys, don't put your tents any closer than 200 meters from where you have whitetail. So basically, if I've got a zone here, don't put your tent any closer than 200 meters. You're going to spook the animals upon traveling to your tent. So don't do that. You got to keep that in mind. So tent placement, tripod placement, really important. The closer you can get your tent and your tripods together, the better. But like I said, your tripods can be a little bit closer than your tents. 150 for your tripods, 200 for your tents. It works for me, but like I said, if you can get your tents and your tripods close together, that is the ticket. That's what you want. You'll also notice if you go through my lakes that my tripods, I've got them strategically set up. Usually it's going to be across, like if I've got a zone here, you're usually going to be going across a lake or just whatever is easiest. There's no rule to it. Let's go to this zone. I'll show you what I've done here. Basically, the way that I do it, you want elevation. I get a lot of questions about like where to place tents, how to know where to place your tripods, your tents. And basically, I think people want to know like the thinking that goes into that. And for me, all it is and this is a pretty good example actually, because my zone for whitetail is up on this kind of embankment above the lake. So they're kind of elevated to begin with. And the last thing you want is to, you know, like if I put my tent and my tripod down there, I'm not gonna be able to see them. They're higher up than I am. Half the time I'm not gonna be able to see them. You know, the deer aren't always gonna be in the exact same spot. They're gonna be, you know, within 50 meters or so of their zone, and they do tend to shift. So if you can get a spot where you've got elevation and you can kind of look down, that's what you want. And so the reason my tent is back there is because it would be too close. This is about 150 meters to where my whitetail would be. So it's good for my tripod, but I've got to move my tent back. So I've got my tent moved back safely about 220 meters away from my zone. And that's pretty much the thinking behind it. If you can get elevation, and we can go to, you know, pretty much any of my zones here, and you'll notice that the main thing I'm looking for when I'm putting down my tents is elevation, a line of sight to my zone and to the whole lake in general, so that I can kind of come in here. I can look for new zones. I've got the highest spot at any given lake. It's just a matter of getting, when I start this, before I have my zones, I usually will place tents at my hotspots. And to go back to that, because I started pointing them out and I got sidetracked. But basically, yeah, top left, that's a hot spot. I would say this is a hot spot. Check Runaki, that's a hot spot. Check all along the river system, okay? I can't really point out any specific hotspots for the river, but if I had to, I guess I feel like I've had zones up in this area, in the top right of the fork here along the river. This seems to be really good. I've got a few zones in there, and I would say probably the bottom in the south of the river system. This seems to be a really good spot. I've got a zone on this little island, and I've got a tent and a tripod set up here where I've got a line of sight. Along here seems to be really good. I don't have a zone here. I did have one here, and you could see that on my map. I had a zone right here that I believe I deleted, and it never came back. Belmont Lake is huge, guys. I've got 3 zones here right now. Unfortunately, they're all single doe zones. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that pertains to the current patch and something weird that's going on with the whitetail that we'll talk about a little bit more later. For now, Belmont Lake is awesome. Belmont, whatever you call this, the swamp or whatever, is good. Check all of this. I've got a zone here, you guys. I've got a zone here, Mushroom Lake. Check there, that's a hot spot. All of these little lakes, though, I've had zones here at any given time, at all of them. And then these 2 lakes as well. I've got zones at both. But it's worth checking everything. It's worth checking these 4 lakes. I don't have whitetail here right now. Doesn't mean they can't be there. Also along this little spot on the river, and North Lake as well. I don't have a zone here. I'm pretty sure Scarecrow had one down in this area. But yeah, basically you're checking every lake. Check all along the river system, and you should be good to go. Don't wipe a zone. You guys, if you kill all of the animals at any given zone, you're going to delete the zone the same way that you would with hunting pressure, which we'll talk about next. Basically, leave at least a doe or at least a buck at any given zone. Do not wipe all of the animals. You will lose the zone. Now, hunting pressure. Let's talk about hunting pressure. Hunting pressure without a tripod, and this is one of the reasons that tripods are so important. Without a tripod, you guys, and we'll take a look at this hunting pressure here in particular. I don't have a tripod set up here, mainly because I never have more than 2 or 3 bucks here, so it's not an issue as long as I keep track of, you know, my hunting pressure, and I don't come back to this zone until the hunting pressure is gone. And to delve more into that, your map can only have so much hunting pressure. And basically what hunting pressure is when you kill an animal, you get a spot on your map that looks like this. This is fading off, but basically it looks like this. They start out like this. Basically, this is a good way to look at it. They start out dark purple. They get a little bit brighter until they look pretty much like that. And that's basically what they look like after you've killed 3 animals. Now, if I go and kill a 4th animal, I'm going to wipe any zone underneath the hunting pressure. Okay, so I can kill 3 animals at this zone and not wipe my zone. If I kill a 4th, the zone's gone. It may come back here. It may pop up somewhere else. So basically, big oof if you're wiping your zones. If you got whitetail zones and you're wiping them, you're doing it wrong. Don't wipe your zones. The thing with tripods is you go from 3 max to, I believe it's 15. It's 12 or 15. Basically, you're not going to wipe your zones. If you got a tripod down and you're killing your whitetail, or any other species for that matter, from the tripod, you pretty much don't have to worry anymore about wiping a zone. You can kill like 15 animals without wiping. You don't have to worry about it. So tripods are huge for that purpose. And like I said, your map can only have so much at a time. So basically, if you come up with a circuit or a route that you follow, your hunting pressure will follow you, essentially. And by the time you get back to where you started, your hunting pressure at that zone will be gone. But I would definitely suggest and recommend getting as many tripods as you can. They're not cheap. But as you go, as you get money from your grind, I would highly recommend getting more tripods, getting tripods down at as many of your zones as possible. And we can move on from that into using ATVs to your advantage. Now, what I mean by that, what do I mean by using ATVs? Well, let's say that I've got my tent real close by. I look down, I've got 3 whitetail, and I go bang, bang, bang. All 3 are down. Well, it'll be a lot quicker for me to run back to the tent, grab my ATV, okay, and just a vroom on down there and pick up my whitetail. And I would suggest doing that anytime you get your kills and you've got an outpost or a tent nearby. Go back, double back, grab your ATV, whip down there and pick them up. You're going to save so much time. And time management here with this grind is so huge. You've only got a small window of time, especially after this patch. A lot of the time, they're not coming into their zones till 1330 or 1400 even. And then, you know, they're starting to leave at 1500. So using your ATVs to your advantage to save those little bits of time is going to be huge. It's going to be absolutely massive. I would highly suggest doing it any chance that you can, and basically boosting your efficiency. All right, time resets. Let's talk a little bit about time resets, guys. So basically, you're at a tent, you're at an outpost, time resets. The way that this works is really simple. Some people get really confused by this, but if you're skipping ahead a day, you're not setting the time forward, you're setting it back. And I've had people ask me, why do you keep setting the time back 2 minutes? And the answer to that is, well, anytime you set time back, so right now, if it's 1801, I want to go forward a day, I can't go back in time. You can't go back in time in this game. So as soon as you go backwards, now you're in the next day. So 1801, I want to go back. I go to 1759, right? Let's say it's 1800. I want to go back. 1759, I'm going to the next day. 1758, we're going to the next day if we're going backwards. If I'm going forwards, I'm just jumping ahead, right? If it's 1801 and I go forwards with this, I'm just jumping ahead a couple minutes. That's not going to do me any good. I'm going to be wasting my money. So, like I said, it's 1800 right now. It's jumping back to 1756. I'm going to rest. I just went forward a day. Now, for respawns, for me, I feel like the magic number is 3 respawns. I'll usually do 3 after my run, and then I'll do a game reset. People ask, why do you do a game reset? The game resets tend to reset your animals. Basically, what I like to do, I'll usually do it 3 times, maybe even 4 or 5. They do get more expensive as you go. They're going to get pricey. So every time I do this, you guys, every time I go back 2 minutes or even 1 minute, that's resetting to a different day. So I would suggest do 3 or 4 of those a run if you can afford it. Even just do 1 or 2. That's still better than not doing it at all. Nobody knows for sure how respawns work. Everything that we've learned about respawns, we've pretty much learned on our own. Everyone, feeding off of each other's information. But yeah, do a few resets. You're gonna finish up your runs at roughly 1528, 1530. Okay, my run's done. I came back to my tent. Go back an hour. Go back another hour, and then go back another hour. Boom. And then that's usually when I start. 12:30-ish, I'll do my last rest, go into my menu, system, exit to desktop. Exiting to main menu isn't enough. You got to reset the game. Exit to desktop, reopen the game, come back to the game. Good to go. Do your next run. And it's that simple, really. All right, so I want to show you guys what I mean about follow-up shots and talk a little bit more about follow-up shots. A lot of questions in the stream. How are you so fast with your follow-up shots? Oh my gosh, how do you do that? Most of it's practice. A lot of it is that recoil perk that we talked about. But a lot of it's technique too. And you guys have probably noticed that I do have a certain way of shooting. I don't know really how to explain it. But I have a certain way that I do it that I've gotten the feel for over time. And you guys don't have to do it the same way. By all means, of course, you don't have to do it the same way. But if you can come up with a way that you kind of do essentially the same thing I'm doing, but your own way, whatever's comfortable for you, I would recommend doing that. And then basically every time I take a shot, I'm doing kind of the same motion. These guys are pretty far out. I'm going to 0 for 300 and try to show you guys what I mean. You've probably noticed that when I take a shot, I start low and I come up. And the reason I do that, I'll wait for the deer to kind of get in the position that I want it to be. Let's say I want this doe's head up. Okay, I'll hold my breath with it low and I'll come up and shoot because I've kind of memorized how the gun sway works in the game. So it basically, I've got it down to a point where I know what the gun is going to do and I know what it's going to feel like. And that allows me to get my shots off quicker. So I'll kind of show you what I mean here. We'll let her go down and then back up, and you'll notice what I mean. For me, it's down to up every time. All right, let's check this herd out over here. Oh my, oh my, oh my. We got a huge buck here. Okay, so again, 250 meters out. These guys are a little ways out there, but we'll try it again. And we just happen to have an absolutely massive whitetail. Diamond potential whitetail. That might actually be a diamond. I don't know if he's got the width. 234 to 274. We might actually have a diamond here. But anyway, let's get a shot broadside on this diamond potential buck here. I don't think he's got the width to make diamond, but that would be really interesting. Basically, we're gonna go, and that's the other thing too, is for these follow-up shots, kind of plan what you're gonna do. I'm gonna go right to left here because I definitely want to get this guy down first, and I'm gonna try to get these 3 deer. So I am gonna take out a doe here as well. And for this grind, man, since the patch, I would recommend taking down a doe here and there. Don't be shy about taking out a doe. Don't be shy about taking out 2 or 3 doe if you've got a zone that's just 5 does. It seems to be more beneficial than it is detrimental to the grind for whatever reason. And I really do feel like respawns are, you know, apparently the sexes can interchange. I really do feel like that's a thing right now. Whether it's supposed to be, I don't know. But anyway, these guys are 238 out. I'm going to 0 for 300. And just make sure that we're not aiming high by any means. And we should be good. So I'm going to let him dip down and back up again. I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to rush it. There's no reason to rush any shots. Except for the follow-ups. And again, start low. And I'm going to come up. Okay, he took off pretty quick. We can wait. And we can get him on the run. Don't be shy about hitting an animal more than twice. If you're just, when you're grinding, it's not about getting full score for these guys, right? You just want to get them down. All right, so I've got a couple does here and I got a couple bucks. I'm going to move up to my tripod, which is basically as close as I would ever let a tripod get to my animals. About 150 off. We're actually just a little bit under 150, but we should be okay, I think, to jump in our tripod here. And that puts us at about 135 from that doe. And as you can see, we're fine. She's got no idea. No idea what's going on. We're going to take these 2 bucks out. Maybe try to get a doe as well. 0 for 150. Nice and easy. Nice and easy. We're going to wait. We're going to do it right now. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. And that's it. That's it, man. You get that recoil perk. Practice. Get a feel for how you want to do your aiming. Whether you want to do it the way I do it. Start low and come up. Okay. So our doe, we got the heart and we got the right lung. And then we got our 2 bucks. Double lung on that guy. Double lung on that guy. Well, that pretty much covers everything I wanted to touch on for this guide. I hope that helps you. If there's anything that I missed in this video that you guys have questions about, let me know in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them, but I think I pretty much touched on all the fundamentals that I wanted to touch on. That should give you guys a pretty good idea of how the Great One grind works. Not just the Great One grind, but grinding in general. That you can use a lot of that info, a lot of those tactics to grind any species in this game. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, or if it helped you at all, please do hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, guys. I appreciate you, and I will see you guys in the next one.